Well, welcome to the Dr. Tech Show, where myself, Pauline Roche, and Sweyn Hunter, and occasional guests guide you through the world of online communications in a show which was the brainchild of the late great internet evangelist John Popham. So we're on our own this week, Sweyn. How do we feel
Yes.
about that?
Well, we'll do our best.
Yes, keep people entertained and informed. But let's talk about the weather as we usually do. Here in Birmingham, it is a lovely blue sky, and I hope it lasts so I can get out later. But it was beautiful yesterday. Very, very warm day yesterday in Birmingham. What about yourself?
It was, well, today it's lovely. It's cool. It's just a nice cool breeze, otherwise very warm, very bright. We had we were the North Sea coasts that had fog yesterday, unfortunately. But you could see how it would be a hot day if the fog had gone away.
It's good to know that's you think that's a possibility. So the kind of things we've picked up for celebrations or remarking about this time, on the 31st of May in 1879, the first electric railway opened at Berlin Trades Exposition. Electric railway. I'm not really a railway type person. Never have been. I mean, I like traveling on them, and I've done interrailing, but I'm just happy to get where I want to go. I'm not into the equipment. What about yourself? Are you?
I love being on trains. I mean, I don't take that much interest in how they work, but I like traveling around, looking out the window and traveling through countryside. Yes, I do like a nice train journey. And of course, for me living in Orkney here, it's a bit of a treat because we don't have any trains here. There were a few very short lines for military purposes, mainly at docks and places like that during the war, but not any normal kind of trains for us to travel around the county in, unfortunately.
Well, what's the size of the island from north to south, east to west?
Oh, good question. From east to west, I guess it's about 40 miles. From north to south, at its highest point, it is probably about 25 miles if you don't count the Churchill barriers down to St. Ronald. So there's only 20,000 people, so I can't see a business case for a railway. It's hard enough to get a business case for a bus.
Oh, well, I hope there are buses.
There are buses.
Yeah,
but,
yeah. Okay. Okay, and moving on the 1st of June in 1880, the first paid telephone service in the United States is installed in New Haven, Connecticut. So that must have been very exciting. But first paid telephone service. So obviously other people had to have telephones to make that viable thing. Do you remember when you first used a paid telephone, Sweyn?
I do. It wasn't the very original type, but it still had button A and button B. Can't remember what either of them are for now. It's quite soon changed to the more automatic type.
Yeah. Button A was for putting the money in, wasn't it? You lodged your coin, and then when the person answered, you pressed the button A, I think, to let the money go in. Button B maybe got your money back or something. I don't know.
Maybe. Anything that you hadn't spent. I don't know. It yes, it seems a long time ago. I don't know when the last time I used a payphone was. I have done it in the era of mobile phones for one thing or another. But it's a very unusual occurrence nowadays.
Yeah. When you see a phone box on the street these days, it's usually got some other equipment in, or internet or something like that.
Yes.
So yeah, it must be hard for people. I mean, we've talked about before on the show about people who don't have mobile phones. They still need communication services. So I hope they until they know that everybody in the whole world has a mobile phone, that they don't discontinue them completely.
Well, there's quite a detailed process, I think, still to remove. For BT has to justify the removal of payphone, the last payphone in a location, because typically in the olden days you'd have 2 or 3 in one place in many places, and BT still, I think, has to justify that they are allowed to remove the last payphone from each location. But having said all that, they have removed a lot of payphones have gone.
Yeah. Well, we hope some survive. Okay, moving on again. I discovered this from Rachel Connellisk, who was a guest of ours previously on the show. 30th of May to the 5th of June is Bike Week, National Bike Week. And this is under the aegis of cyclinguk.org. And this is an annual celebration to showcase cycling and how brilliant it is. And they invite people to join them across the UK and enjoy the simple pleasure of riding a bike. And the theme of Bike Week 2021 is health and well-being. They remind us that cycling remains a great way to keep fit and active, and is a good way to boost immunity and fantastic for your well-being. This year, they're launching the world's biggest bike ride, and they have a 7 days of cycling challenge, giving you an amazing way to reunite with your friends and family in the outdoors. And they list all kinds of challenges you can take part in, reminding us though that the most important thing is to take part, record your ride, and have fun. And actually, my Sweyn, my cycling instructor, Dominic Spitzer Wong, hi Dominic, is doing a bike ride has been doing a bike ride over the weekend. So I'm starting to think this is connected to this biggest bike ride challenge. Yes. He's documenting it on Facebook, so he's giving shout outs and stuff. And I think the guy he's doing it with had a puncture, sadly, yesterday, but I'm sure that's fixed by now, and they're on the road again. So yeah, great to do that
stuff,
sort of thing.
Yes, I must say I'm a convinced pedestrian. I'm not much of a cyclist, but
yeah,
it's good for them to enjoy it. I prefer walk, to be honest.
It's funny actually. We were just talking about transport on Orkney. You would have thought cycling would be a very popular.
Cycling would be great if it wasn't for the wind. It seems to be that the wind is always blowing directly in your face at sort of stiff breeze or worse. And it is quite dispiriting unless you're a real fanatic. And there are lots of real fanatics.
I'm sure. Yes, unfortunately, you do see lots of stories on Twitter of cyclists who have near misses with over enthusiastic, shall we say, car drivers who some of whom, not all obviously, some of whom seem to resent the fact that cyclists are out there on the roads as well. So we give a shout out to the people who don't
leave plenty of space.
Don't get upset with cyclists.
Too close. That's the main
and the cyclists
thing,
who are on the road. Yes, leave space for everybody. Okie doke. And another thing around this time of year is Volunteers Week, and this year it's from Tuesday the 1st to Monday the 7th of June. A time to say thanks for the contribution millions of people make across the UK through volunteering, and they invite people to join them this year to recognise the fantastic contribution volunteers make. And on screen now, Sweyn has the Volunteers Week website. Is it the Volunteers Week website, or is it from some other
volunteersweek.org?
Yeah. So I'm sure there's lots of volunteers, some of whom are coming back into the office, having worked remotely for a while, sharing all the great things about being a volunteer. And Sweyn's just scrolling down to see the various stories on the screen. NCVO volunteering, chance to say thank you to volunteers. Volunteers Week reminds us all to take the time to say thank you to the millions of volunteers who give their time to improve the lives of their friends and neighbours. From trustees to fundraisers and mentors to befrienders, thank you all for making our communities a happier place to be. And that's Debbie Weeks Bernard, Deputy Mayor for Social Mobility, Social Integration and Community Engagement.
Okay.
Yeah, nice ones. Yeah. We're serial volunteers, aren't we, Sweyn? We are. We like to do a bit of volunteering.
I must say, I volunteer in short bursts rather than anything particularly regular. But yes, I'm always keen to get involved in something that looks interesting and worthwhile.
Yeah, same here. It's you meet, it's great to meet new people with different interests and find out what else you can do in life, and the satisfaction of the social glow, as Nick Booth calls it, of helping people is always a good one. And an event that we've picked up is on the 1st and 2nd of June, so tomorrow, Tuesday and Wednesday for this week, on accessibility and the future of work, and this is the role of digital, which is from edf-fefph.org. And this is organised by the European Disability Forum, sponsored by Microsoft. The summit aims to raise awareness of the importance of accessible technology in furthering the employment of persons with disabilities in Europe. And the virtual 2-day event is being held on Teams for a range of European partners from the disability community, policy and business sectors. And it's the inaugural event and they're hoping it'll be part of a series of events related to the future of work and the role of digital technology. And on screen, Sweyn has the webpage now. And we hope that's of interest to more of our listeners.
Yep.
Okay. So as we said today, we don't have a guest, surprisingly, for a change, but we do have, moving on to our next story, a piece of video from what's called the CIO Watercooler TV, and it is a chap called Freddie Queck, the CTO of Times Higher Education, talking to David Savage of CIO Watercooler TV, and it's an excerpt from a video called Digital Inclusion, Join the Dots to Drive Change. So we've just picked out about 3 minutes of video and audio that you should be able to hear, but this is just to give you the background. The pandemic highlighted the fact that many people in the community simply don't have access to the technology and devices they need to do their jobs or learn from home. And in this video, Freddie Queck discusses a promising initiative for tackling digital exclusion.
I think the difference is that,
I didn't mean to interrupt you there, Pauline.
That's okay. I'll just finish reading out this. Freddie's reaching out to IT leaders and organizations to help join the dots to narrow the digital poverty gap. See, he talks about several ways you can get involved. Laptops and tablets are not the only solutions. So this initiative is about creating a holistic view of requirements spanning devices, support, career opportunities, and expertise in cybersecurity. So we invite you to learn more about this digital inclusion strategy and how to get involved. So Sweyn's going to play a few minutes from the video now.
We all start from the most obvious place, which is let's donate some equipment, right? But I think we now need to go beyond that, because that may not be the most, although it may be the most obvious place to start with, but not the most obvious place to really give help, right? We need to be a bit more joined up. There needs to be a lot more thought that goes into solving this problem once and for all, because this is a solvable problem. UK is the 5th largest world economy, right? We are all tech leaders. Surely this is something that we can do something about. And this is why we believe that if we all join up, our efforts, right? Understanding what is going out there, and then finding a way to address them in a more sort of systemic and holistic and far-reaching manner, that would help solving the problems. And for example, donating an equipment is one thing, but what about technical support for the child who needs to learn how to use that equipment or get support when there's an issue? Do we go far enough to think about that? I don't think so, right? And what about cyber safety, right? And what about cyber safety? So there's a lot of dimensions. So one of the things that we found from this information gathering was that we identified 6 action areas. So hopefully, again, part of this information gathering, socializing and mobilizing is to share that information with those communities out there. There are other ways of helping.
So your approach today is hoping that an IT manager, director, CTO, CIO of a member of this community is listening, and they get in touch to donate some machines. They get in touch to say, you know what, some of my teams might be interested to volunteer some time in schools. What do they do? If they're kind of going, this is something that I want to help. Is it a case of getting in touch with you?
Yeah. So 2 things. One is that we want to make sure that we are trying to find out who is already doing something. So if you are doing something already, let us know, right? And then the second question is that if you are thinking of doing something and would like to help, then get in touch, because then hopefully what we're trying to do is to solve all the problems, because nobody can on their own, right? But together we can. If we can signpost for you to know where to start from, where to get the information, so that you as an individual, as a community, or as an organization, because of CSR, to do something about it. So the 6 areas, right? 1 is equipment provisioning, that is obvious, right? 2 is technical support. That is an area that's really, really lacking. 3 is about getting digital skills, right? So, not that they know how to use it. And 4 is about technical career opportunities. So this is including sort of work placements, career talks, apprenticeships, type of thing. 5th is around communication, which is why I'm here today, because we all have a responsibility to help to socialize this message, right? So that we can then mobilize ourselves to be more focused on the efforts. And then last but not least is area that we know very well. This is about GRC, governance, risk, compliance, right? And this is where cyber safety, online safety, cyber essentials, these are the kinds of things that IT leaders is our area of expertise, and we can do something, and this is what we're trying to do now, to join those things up so that we can offer a more holistic way of solving this problem.
I feel
Great. So I thought that was really useful, Sweyn, to illustrate how IT leaders are coming together to try and address the problem.
Yes,
So many of us have recognized. If you look on the screen behind Freddie, there was all those what you call corporate logos of all the
Yes.
different organizations that were interested in getting involved.
Just show
So
that again briefly. Yeah, no, I think that was a really, yes, see all the logos. I mean, I'm not, I mean, CIO, Chief Information Officer, that's what they're talking about. So that's a group of, as you say, a group of IT leaders who are trying to get their heads around and get to grips with the whole digital inclusion thing. And I think it's I mean, IT people can sometimes be quite good at joining the dots and joining up and seeing the different aspects of a problem. But they're also capable of as they're saying, they're also capable of just focusing on the hardware and the software and then kind of forgetting the human elements a wee bit. So it's good to see this initiative. I'm not quite sure how this plugs into all the other activity that there is in the field, but I'm sure that they're working on that and trying to work out how to connect in. I mean, just looking at all those logos, they seem to have quite a lot of the main, certainly the main larger organizations active in the field, and I guess through those organizations they'll find other projects and initiatives to link into, which I think it's as we've said a lot recently, it's one of the things that needs more focus is actually joining up what's going on so that it can have a proper lasting effect.
Yeah,
starting yet another little project somewhere.
Yeah.
To do so.
Well, if they you know, I can see great links with the Restart project that we've featured on here before, and the UK Tech for Good organisers that I'm part of as well. So I think there's potential to link all these up. I mean, they list the 3 sets of logos. There are tech leaders, communities, partners involved in digital inclusion initiatives, and connections via tech leaders and partners. And they'll be the third would be the more commercial ones. The ones that they list across the bottom are Asda, Vodafone, Dell, and BT. So it's good to see them all kind of surface like this. And but it needs something to kind of bring it all together. So there isn't duplication. That's what I hate the most, you know.
Yes, I mean, yes, I don't. Yes, it's hard, isn't it? The double duplication thing.
Yeah,
it's a balance between enough cooperation and liaison without making that effort in itself to link up too onerous on particularly on small projects. But I think more and more people are thinking along the right lines and trying to connect, you know, actively trying at the outset to link up with what other things that are going on in the same sort of, either the same geographical area or in related subject areas.
Absolutely. Okay, so if you're interested in that project, Join the Dots, the hashtag is Joining the Dots. So it's worth having a look online and see how you might want to get involved. I think it started in the northeast or north some sort of the of England somewhere, but I'm sure it has spread wider now. And we'd be happy to connect you up or encourage other people to get involved and come on the show as well and talk about it. Because this is not, as Freddie said, this is not going to go away overnight anyway. So there'll be time to keep getting involved in this sort of thing.
Sure.
Okay, so the next one is one of yours, the one you picked up, Sweyn, Watch Together.
Yes, and typically I'm having, oh no, there we go. Yes, Watch Together. It's a website and an app, which I just thought was an interesting one. I'll share the screen and just quickly describe how I think it works. I'm having trouble with my mouse. I don't quite know why. This is perfect time for this to happen. Not. I don't know. There's something weird going on with my machine because things are still running, but I can't click on anything. Right, so that's... No, I cannot share my screen for some reason.
Is it worth me trying?
Just a sec. I'll just try that one more time. There we go.
Great.
There's something, right. Watch Together. So it's a website, as I say, And the basic idea is that, well, you create yourself an account. I've created myself a free account. I haven't worked out yet what is the advantage of paying for an account. There's always some advantage. So I'm going to what I've done here is I've created a room. I wonder if I can find where that room, here we go. So if you want to watch a video, and let's just stick to YouTube for now, because I know that works. If you want to watch a video with friends or relations that aren't with you, that are somewhere else in the world, then you can do it this way. You can create a room, and there's a room that we're creating. It wants a name for it, so watch this with me, we'll call it, and then we'll join that room. And Pauline, you've already joined my room, but if I wanted somebody else to connect with me, then I would send them this link here. So there's the copy icon there. So send that link, and you send that link to somebody else. Then they open Watch Together on their screen, and what it does is it coordinates your access to the same YouTube video, so that whatever I see, you see at the same time. And not only that, during it, you can play the video. Let's play the video here. Turn the volume down. And if we weren't already connected on Zoom, Pauline, we could actually be connected. Here's you and here's me in a room.
Yeah.
We can use our camera and our video to chat about what we see. We could pause the video and say, oh, look at that. We go back a bit and all that sort of stuff. So it's as if you had an old-fashioned film projector in your room.
Yes.
And you're sitting in a group talking about what you can see if you want to. I just thought it was quite neat.
I thought it was fun.
Go ahead.
I thought it was fun. You know, I enjoyed. We tested this out before the show, and it was really clear picture and sound, and I could see great benefits from this. You know, in my own family, I think. But my mom, I'd love to watch a film with her. Side, you know, as if we were side by side.
I'm having my mouse problem again, so I can't stop sharing. Oh well. There we go. No, it's very strange. Just keep talking, Pauline.
Yeah. So the blurb from the Watch Together website, which is w2g.tv, HTTPS in front of that, says, enjoy the internet in sync with your friends, watch videos, listen to music, or go shopping on Watch Together. Watch Together has a simple goal to make it easy for friends to watch videos together, no matter where they are in the world. The whole idea of Watch Together is to give you a cool place where you can relax and have fun with your friends. And as I say, I think, you know, certainly in my family, we could use this with each other. We still have the family Zoom call at 5 o'clock on a Sunday, but, you know, it might be nice occasionally to just kick back and watch a film together, or a short video, or, you know, things we make ourselves.
Absolutely.
I think
I seem to be able to move on through the stories, but not able to stop sharing the screen. So we'll go on to the next one.
Okay, so our next story is from Caerphilly Minor Centre. This was a tweet from the Minor Centre talking about a free digital course from 29th of July to the June, 29th of June to the 20th of July. And it's great to see, you know, what might be considered a less technical network or group getting their heads around digital and helping their members to think of what they might use it for. And a very simple sort of poster in both English and Welsh, of course, asking people if they want to try a free digital course. And I'm assuming that it'll be, you know, the standard sort of, you know, find out what you're interested in and then learn how you can do it online. So a good one there, and recommended to our friends in Caerphilly, in or around Caerphilly. Moving on, our next story was about how Greater Manchester Police are donating 2,400 tablets to the Greater Manchester Tech Fund to support communities who face digital exclusion. And again, from a tweet, this donation is happening to be support young people and families facing digital exclusion across the city region. And the Greater Manchester Tech Fund was launched at the start of the pandemic by Andy Burnham, the Mayor of Greater Manchester, to support digitally excluded young people with the technology and connectivity needed to continue their learning at home while schools and colleges remain closed. And the donation from GMP was initially made to the Greater Manchester Youth Combined Authority, who chose to donate the tablets to support young people, local young people, through the Greater Manchester Tech Fund. The generous donation has enabled the fund to support a total of 3,527 people and 132 schools and colleges since it launched. It's good to see, again, we've talked in other stories and on previous times about how tablets aren't the be all and end all, the devices aren't the end all, but it is very handy to have your own device to do your work on. And we applaud Greater Manchester Police for making this very generous donation. I mean, often the emergency services do have funds to help communities. It's not all about arrests and prosecutions, is it, Sweyn? It's a lot of prevention and support.
And I think more and more as time's gone by, the police have been involved in more and more things like this, and it's great to see. I don't know what you can see on my screen now. Am I still sharing something?
You're gone blank altogether now.
Oh, dear me.
Yeah.
Dear me.
But we can keep chatting anyway.
Yes,
and,
keep chatting.
And our Hope Radio listeners won't be affected by the lack of video on the screen. Is it all right to move on?
Right.
Oh, there we go.
Yes, move on. I think somehow it's come free slightly, so that's good. Let's keep tracking on. And we're not editing any of this out. This is just how it works.
This is
Dr. Tech Show in the raw.
Real radio.
As it happens.
Yeah. So this next story is again from a tweet. The Twitter handle is ClinLeadWBM, and it talks about how older people have accessed IAPT, that is improving access to psychological therapy services less during the pandemic, often due to digital exclusion. And this was a Twitter thread by Sally Lewis, who says, in a serious roundtable discussion yesterday regarding the negative impacts of the pandemic of older people who have borne the brunt of the devastating effects of the disease itself, but there are many other aspects. And this was the digital exclusion aspect of not having access to technology. So it's just kind of reminding people that not everybody has access. We need to keep doing stuff. Yeah, so just a kind of a reminder there from somebody who knows what they're talking about. Moving on again, we have another story from Manchester, Greater Manchester Digital.mailchimpsites.com. A reminder why we need to keep talking about accessibility, and the writer says we've been doing a lot of work to make sure conversations about accessibility and inclusivity are ongoing and prominent. And they express thanks to their ex-design ops manager, Dave Cunningham, who's been instrumental in this work. And so they list the things they've been doing, which might be a handy list for others who are getting involved in the work. So they've created their accessibility policy, which are standards they hold themselves to account at all stages of product and service development. They've defined their interpretation of the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, WCAG, and how to hold Co-op to account for those in their digital accessibility standards. They formed accessibility working groups to regularly assess and critique their products and services. This is from the Co-op Digital, the Co-op as a major entity. By the way, just in case I missed saying that at the beginning. I'll carry on with the list. They've set up an accessibility champion network for colleagues around the business to learn more about accessibility and encourage others to do the same. They've embedded accessibility and inclusivity objectives across the digital product and design team. They've been using a product called Fable to regularly research their products and services with disabled people. They've held a 3-day inclusion accessibility co-op takeover for the Ally Manchester event, and they have a link to what happened in the talks during that event. They've opened their accessibility awareness training to all colleagues. Two last things: they've been creating guidance, tools, and resources on accessibility as part of their new experience library, which is an out-of-date their existing accessibility guidelines. And they've been trying out different ways to make accessibility more relatable to people. So I think for other organizations who might be looking at what can we do around access and disabled people especially, it's a handy list to remind people it's not just about talking about it and sharing equipment. There are standards to be reached, forming working groups so people can kind of learn and then reflect on what they're doing, setting up champions. I do think the champion idea is a good one, because, you know, if you've got somebody else to check things out with, it can really help your understanding of what needs to change. Creating guidance, tools and resources. Sorry, Sweyn, go on.
I seem to have regained some control of the of my computer. I think we see it time and again that where you have a role that is kind of peer-to-peer championing, mentoring, that sort of idea, that's a very powerful way to make progress on some of this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I've built up over the years, you know, huge networks of people I feel I can turn to and ask publicly or privately when I need something. And I know John Popham, when he was with us, was great for responding publicly or privately to tweets about what should I do, who should I talk to, you know, what's the best equipment to use or whatever. I suppose you find yourself in that position as well, Sweyn.
Definitely. Now? I mean, for all the downsides and problems that there are with social media, that's definitely a big part of the upside for me, is just, you know, either asking questions or trying to answer them. Because each question that you notice on Twitter or Facebook or whatever, it makes you think about a problem in a slightly different way, and it makes you realize that others are thinking about issues that you're thinking about as well. And it's just a great way to kind of feel connected and to keep your kind of sense of worth going a wee bit. So definitely, if we can work out ways of, if we each work out ways of either putting up with or filtering out the darker side of social media, I think the positives that are there are well worth the effort. Absolutely,
highly recommended. One of the things I was, as a slight digression, but one of the things I was enjoying most of the weekend was Matt LeBlanc. You know, there's been a remake of Friends, however many X years on from when they originally made the series. Matt LeBlanc has hit Irish Twitter with a series of tweets based on some photographs of him, like with his arms folded or just standing in front of it. Yeah, that sort of thing. The black shirt with the white stripes. And Irish Twitter has gone, you know, overboard with giving him lines that, you know, a typical Irish character would say in these circumstances, and it's hilarious.
It's everybody's da.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. How's it going? And, you know, do you want a lift? And, you know, gives a pint. Yeah, pull us a pint there, Mary, when you're ready. That sort of thing. You know,
I liked the all the various pictures he's been photoshopped into as well. That's quite amusing. All sorts of bars in Ireland, scenes from, you know, recently or longer ago, and you've got Matt LeBlanc in there as part of the group,
fitting in nicely. Yes, absolutely. In fact, he's been renamed. He's now Matty LeBon. You know, that's the Irish in the Irish language. Matty LeBon. Yeah, so it's nice to have a bit of crack on the socials as well. Okay, coming back to our stories. This is one from Malawi. Digital rights. Oh, what? Sorry.
Go ahead. Sorry, I'm just rather nervous now about whether anything will ever work again. So just ignore me.
Malawi Digital Rights and Inclusion Report from 2020, and the report says that 2020 was a mixed bag in the context of digital rights in Malawi, and violations such as costly internet access, cyber violence and against women and girls, state online surveillance, absence of online personal privacy and data protection continue to threaten freedom of expression of citizens in the digital space. This is further exacerbated by weak policy and regulatory frameworks and use of draconian laws inherited from both the colonial era and during the one-party dictatorial era, which was 1964 to 1994, which is yet to be repealed. Nevertheless, the report says the current government leadership under President Chakwera has also shown some political commitments to ensure that internet and ICT devices become affordable and accessible to all Malawians. This has been demonstrated by scaling down the prices of internet bundles, continued establishment of telecentres in rural areas, operationalisation of the Access to Information Act of, among others, sorry, I missed a sentence there, operationalisation of the Access to Information Act. And of recent, there's been no reported cases of civic space crackdowns as compared to the same year in 2019. And there are a series of recommendations based on the conclusions of the report, which are the government should urgently develop a standalone data protection law to ensure citizens' personal data are protected, both in the physical and online spaces. Government should repeal the draconian laws which infringes the freedom of expression of citizens online. Government should review the National Action Plan to combat all forms of gender-based violence and integrate online gender-based violence issues. And government needs to remove high tax charges imposed on importation of ICT gadgets to ensure accessibility and affordability of ICT services for the marginalized population. And this would narrow the digital inequality that currently exists in the country. And again, a great checklist for anyone else considering how they might increase digital inclusion in a country maybe where it's not so inclusive at the moment. This was in 2020, so I'm hopeful that at the end of this year there'll be more success to report. But it's also worth, reflecting that things are happening in other countries that we take for granted, maybe in the UK, with our data protection and privacy laws, which are higher maybe than other countries.
I think it's an interesting initiative, not one that I'd heard of, the Paradigm Initiative, which is working to connect underserved young Africans with digital opportunities and to ensure protection of their rights. It's a great website that you found, Pauline. It's paradigmhq.org, and then to find the report that we were talking about, you can get access to it through the reports tab. But there's all sorts of information about what's happening to help young people in Africa become digitally involved and to make sure that they're connected to each other and to the world. It's a great initiative, that.
Good. We look forward to hearing more about that in due course. Moving on, we got one from more locally to where I am, Citizens Advice Sandwell in Walsall. They have a digital money coach, Mandy, who has helped a participant save £650 per year on water bills and rent costs. And we have talked about, shopping online and being able to access the opportunity to change providers and so on. And we recognize that's not always available for everybody. So well done to Citizens Advice for helping people to do this. I mean, £650 save a year, it's very handy, isn't it? Yeah. And that's only one story. And obviously the person is helping somebody to save money, but also increasing their digital skills by encouraging them to see what they might be able to do.
That's like £12.50 a week or something, isn't it? Quite a lot.
Very handy. I'm sure for somebody who probably couldn't afford that much anyway. So good to see that happening. And then we move on to a critique from one of our previous guests on the show, Ciara Allman, about the Lloyds Bank Consumer Digital Index Survey. And this was a survey that we covered on the show last week, I think. And again, in a tweet, Ciara has commented on the report, which is a widely cited reference for digital inclusion statistics. She's used it herself, she says. It does provide some useful insights, but she has some caveats that she would like to share with us, which I think was very useful. Shall I go on and read these out?
Go ahead. Yes.
Yeah. So as the report states in the methodology section, this sample is generated from an anonymized behavioral data sets of 30 million people across Lloyds Bank, Halifax, and Bank of Scotland customer bases. A diverse data set ensures the sample created is representative of the UK.
So that's the claim, but in the report.
That's the claim, yeah. So she says ultimately a sample of 1 million adults are surveyed, and 2,700 of these respondents are interviewed by telephone. But Ciara says this is not a random sample. As the full title, UK Consumer Digital Index, suggests, this is actually a sample of specific consumers of banking services.
Really important, really
very important to recognise that. It does not include.
When we looked at this, we highlighted this report a week or two back. What it seemed to report, as I recall, was a much lower amount of digital exclusion and digital difficulties.
Yeah.
But having read Ciara's thread here, it kind of suggests one reason why that might be. It could be that it's the sample, not not the actual results that are more interesting.
Yeah. So we're
It's not
happy
to say
to.
it's useless. It's just as Kira says, is sorry, you're carrying on reading them, and she will now say it.
It does not include the unbanked. That's people who don't have bank accounts, I presume. Nor does it include customers of other banking services other than Lloyds, Halifax, and Bank of Scotland. She points out that's a huge omission, and it bakes a certain bias into the sample. So yeah, I think that's certainly worth saying.
Yeah, and another one tweet I would highlight that she in this thread, and she says claiming universality or representativeness makes invisible the experiences of many of the most marginalized groups, like the homeless and migrants, who often face unique barriers in setting up bank accounts. And this report's going to obviously miss out entirely on the perspective of those people. And so if we're using it for the purpose of thinking about bank customers of banks, that's great. If we're using it cautiously to compare it this year's survey to last year's survey, that's great. But we just always, as Tim Harford on More or Less on Radio 4, who is my hero of all time, you've got to make sure you know what the sample you're working on represents. And it's a salutary, an example of this, as I've seen for quite a long time.
Yes, I do tend to be the one at meetings where people say, oh, 20,000 people or 50 people or whatever. They tend to be smaller samples. 50 people said this was a good idea, and I'm the one who always says 50 out of how many. 50 sounds great unless you have the context of out of how many. So yeah,
are they the same 8 out of 10 cat owners? That's what I want to know.
Yeah. So we do encourage people, as we have on here previously on here, to be skeptical about what they read and make sure they know the context of what they're being told. Okie doke. Moving on to another story about councils. They begin. The title of the piece is "Councils Begin Understanding the Digital Divide Project," and this is a project led by Cheshire West and Chester City Council and supported by the Cooperative Council's Innovation Network under its Policy Labs programme. And this project involved producing a toolkit, including a guide to existing data for councils to create a clear baseline of who needs help and where they are, along with tailored recommendations to assess residents' needs and provide remedies. And a spokesperson for CIN said the initiative is being led by Cheshire West and Chester Council, with the other local authorities being Barking, Dagenham, Cardiff, Greater Manchester Combined Authority, Kirklees, Knowlesley, Newcastle, North Hertfordshire, Oxford, Plymouth, Rochdale, Southampton, South Tyneside, Sunderland, and Thameside. And the adult learning charity Workers Educational Association and management consultancy Red Quadrant are also members of this group. And elements of the project include resident consultation, improving the understanding of available data, gathering intelligence to inform adult learning, and producing a lessons learned report. And this is based on the view that while many local authorities regard digital exclusion as a serious issue, they do not see a clear way to deal with it. And this project is aimed at providing insights for councils to develop effective and sustainable solutions to support vulnerable residents. So that sounds like one that we want to keep an eye on to see what they're finding out.
Very much, and it's good to see a group of councils taking such a comprehensive approach. There don't seem to be nothing seems to be ruled out at all. They seem to be taking a holistic kind of approach to the whole issue, and that's what we like to see. I guess though that each organisation, each council, each health provider, whatever, kind of needs to go through this process for themselves to make sure that whatever the services that they are providing, that they're doing it both in a way that makes the most of the digital stuff, but also make sure they don't leave people behind. But the more groups do things like this, the more templates there are for others to follow, and hopefully the easier and more accepted and more normal it will be for councils and other providers to take this approach. I always tend to think in council and the public sector in general, once something gets into your audit framework or your inspection regime, then you know that it's arrived and it's a real thing that everyone now has to take seriously. So we'll have to keep an eye on that in England. I know that auditing's done very differently in England than it is in Scotland. I know in councils, but it'd be interesting to see how that all pans out over the next months and years.
Yeah, it's interesting to see the list of councils who are involved. Only one in Cardiff, so there's like most of them are in England. The majority are in England, and only one in Cardiff, and none in Scotland, as you say.
I think Scotland only has 32 councils to start with, so it's actually in some ways there's traps and exceptions to what I'm about to say, but in some ways it's easier for all the local authorities in Scotland to get together on something and focus on an issue. And I think that through the Connecting Scotland project, I think most councils are well plugged into that, and there's a well-defined route for councils into that very comprehensive system as well. So I think this is a situation where in England it's often that like-minded authorities have to get together in groups, because there's some, I don't know, I can't remember how many local authorities there are in England. Is it 200, 300, 400? I can't remember. But it's impossible for every council to be involved in a project in England. It just doesn't work. So Wales and Scotland and no doubt Northern Ireland, there is this advantage of a smaller scale, which means that some of these complicated overarching things can get kind of short-circuited and progress can be made a bit quicker.
Well, we'll watch that with interest, and hopefully we'll hear more about it. And it's good to see that the WEA is involved as well. We had a guest from WEA, Claire White, on the program some while ago, but they will definitely help the councils to think about what's needed in their local areas, because they're really plugged into what people on the front lines need from their the courses that they offer. It's good to hear they're improving their understanding of available data, because again, as we said in the previous story, you need to know the context of what data you're comparing things with, and producing lessons learned obviously then can be shared around to lots of other councils, and that they're also looking at sustainable solutions, because I think lots of councils are proposing solutions, but they when the money runs out, the last thing you want to do is see that the project isn't able to carry on in some way to support people. It's often a thing that doesn't get thought about.
Yes, what happens when the initial project money runs out? It's really important.
Yeah. Okay, we've got a couple more stories, so we'll move on to them. The next one is about opting out of sharing your NHS data, and this is one that I spotted a couple of chats about over the no, not that one, Sweyn.
I'm getting ahead of myself.
Yeah. A couple of friends were talking about this over the weekend and last week, and apparently there's a deadline now, the 1st of July of this year, after which very large volumes of data will be extracted from your GP records. And so patients who wish to opt out must do so by the 23rd of June. And in this Financial Times story, I think there's a link to the form that you need to download. And I've heard only today actually that it's a Word document, and it's it's not as intuitive, shall we say, as it could be to enable people to opt out, but lots of people will want to. I mean, the NHS does have a lot of data, and while some people won't mind their data being used, other people will and won't want to share it. So I think it's important to ensure that people have a way of saying no. Will this be just for England, Sweyn, or will this affect Scotland as well?
Yeah. Don't forget, NHS is separate in Scotland and in Wales and in Northern Ireland. Yes, it is a Word document. I was trying to show you the form, but all it's done is it's opened a Word document.
Okay.
I don't really want to do. It's downloaded a Word document for me.
Yeah.
But I don't really want to open it at the moment when I've just got control back of my laptop. But that'll send it into a flat spin again, no doubt.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think the problem in this area is largely, as the article says, that previous attempts to do this have been so miserably poorly thought through and so on, and that there seems to be no trust in the English situation that this data won't be simply handed over to big tech companies to do with whatever they do with all sorts of other other information. I must say, personally, if we could think of a way of sharing our anonymized health data at a kind of population level, if we could think of a way of governing that information, then that would be a fantastic resource for researchers and for medical, preventative medical projects and all sorts of things. But you can't expect people to be happy with doing this if there's inadequate or limited guarantees about who's going to actually benefit from the data. And the first thing you have to do in all of these data things is establish trust with the data subjects.
Yeah.
If you don't do that, and I don't think the English NHS has, then you will get lots of pushback, lots of objections, and multiple use of, however, because the more people opt out, the less use this data is for serious medical purposes.
Yeah.
But you can see why people would want to opt out, given some of the debacles in the past of just transferring huge amounts of data without any real, seemingly without any real control or any real thought about the implications.
It's interesting that that paragraph that you've got highlighted on the screen now is sorry, if you can go back to if you're able to go back to the screen, that and attempts by NHS Digital to allay people's fears have been left more questions than answers. That's the one. Yeah, it says it does not sell data, but that it does charge organizations for access. And the quote is, "We do not allow data to be used solely for commercial purposes," it pledges. And the author of the article points out the word solely does much heavy lifting in that sentence. It's not the kind of guarantee that you'd like to be hearing from.
It certainly isn't.
The IT services,
There needs to be some trusted authority to build the necessary systems and trust for this sort of thing to work. Otherwise, there is a suspicion, and it might be a well-founded suspicion. How can we tell that a big part of this is trying to allow commercial companies to make money out of medical data, which people will not accept in general, I would have thought.
I mean, the story does go on to, quote from about times when that hasn't, confidence hasn't been inspired. And in 2017, the Information Commissioner's Office ruled that an NHS trust broke data protection laws when it shared 1.6 million patient records with DeepMind, which is a unit of Google.
I might be wrong here, but I have a feeling that those records were not even anonymized. I'd have to check that, but whether or not they were and how effectively they were isn't the point here. The point is that not enough effort has been spent on explaining exactly what's going on and clarifying the extent, being upfront about the extent to which there's kind of profit involved in this, because even a bit of profit here and there for organizations that are doing good work, maybe people would accept that. But what they're not going to accept is being kept completely in the dark about what those arrangements are.
Yeah. And it goes on to say, how little general public knows about this and how hard it is to dissent, in order to opt out. As we said, patients have to fill in a form. Have you had a look at the form, Sweyn? Is it easy to fill out, or?
As I said, I was trying to open it to have a look, but I don't really want to do that.
Yeah.
Because of
okay.
my
No.
issues.
But they're saying they have, and then people have to deliver the form to the surgery by the 23rd of June, which is only a couple of weeks away. Surgeries are still overwhelmed, and they're asking patients to consent to something they don't know enough about. So we encourage people to find out more and to
I've clicked on it, so I might as well share it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a word form with lots of words in it, and here we go. Register your type 1 opt-out preference.
Okay, which doesn't explain what this form is. So, as just reading it from the very top, it's not clear to me what you're doing by it's not enough information easily presented at the beginning to tell you what you're about to do. It says the data in your GP medical records is shared with other healthcare professionals for the purposes of your individual care. It's also shared with other organizations to support health and care planning and research. If you do not want your personally identifiable patient data to be shared outside of your GP practice for purposes except your own care, You can register an opt-out with your GP practice. This is
I
known
already
as
don't
a
understand
type 1
this.
opt-out.
I already don't really understand what's going on here.
Mm.
I mean, it is a complicated area, but this is not helping me personally to understand what's
Well,
going
it goes on. The next sentence is type 1 opt-outs may be discontinued in the future. So fill in this form, but we might disregard it. That's what it's saying to me then, you know. If this happens, they may be turned into a national data opt-out.
Maybe they'll be replaced with type 1A opt-outs. Who knows?
If you scroll down, Sweyn,
Yep.
what they're asking for: your name, surname, address, phone number, date of birth, NHS number if you know it, parent or guardian if you need to fill that in, your decision whether to opt out. And so the decision is opt out. I do not allow my identifiable patient data to be shared outside of the GP practice for purposes except my own care, or I do not allow the patient above. Oh, that's for guardian,
And
parent
there's
or
an option there
guardian.
to undo that opt-out. Let's not get into that one.
Yeah.
We're in serious double or triple negatives in that one. Let's not go there.
So
So
it's either opt out or withdraw your opt out. So maybe for somebody who has opted out, they now can choose to opt in. But that should be a separate thing.
Yeah, you know. And what's the difference between anonymized and personally identifiable? That's my question. If everything's anonymized, doesn't that make it not personally identifiable? I don't know. We need to do a bit more digging on this one, I think.
Yeah.
Another time.
Happy to have anybody on the show who would like to talk to us about it.
Yes.
And maybe make it more comprehensible.
Indeed.
And coming to our final story for this week's show is a story from SCVO, Scottish Council of Voluntary Organisations, talking about the evolving digital participation landscape. And I wanted to quote this story because it refers again to the Lloyds Bank report, Consumer Digital Index report, but also the Ofcom report on adults' media use and attitudes report. And the blog post from SCVO says these two reports help shed some light on attitudes and behaviour towards digital, providing insights on how we can target interventions more effectively. And I just refer mostly in the extracts I'm reading out. I'm talking about the Ofcom report. Although they do say both publications illuminate motivations and barriers to being online, providing insights of how we can better target interventions. But I think this is more balanced, you know, bearing in mind the remarks made by Ciara Allman that we referred to earlier in the show. In the Ofcom report, the theme of critical understanding is prominent, and it says that 83% of people who go online consider themselves to be confident internet users, while only 61% were confident in knowing how to manage who has access to their personal data online. All these stories are linked today. The research also highlights that 3% of internet users believed that all information they find online is truthful, 30% thought most is, and 24% didn't even think about whether the information they find is truthful or not. So this tells us that supporting people to be online is more than navigating the mechanics of the internet. It's equally important to consider how we empower people to make informed decisions about the data they receive and give. Moving on to more comments on the report. In Ofcom's findings, 31% of non-internet users said that nothing would prompt them to go online in the next 12 months.
You see, that's a much bigger percentage than the Lloyd's percentage of people who are not online.
Yeah.
They don't really match up together.
No, so I think we do need
unless we remember that
skeptical.
the Lloyd's report is surveying bank consumers, not the whole population.
Of 3 banks only, yeah.
Yeah.
Ofcom report does say that reasons that may encourage someone to go online, including to buy something, 28%, accessing health services, 22%, and getting in touch with someone, 17%. And 14% said, if I had someone to help me or show me how, which again reinforces our kind of thoughts about having someone to help people get online. The final part of this blog post that I picked up was an emerging trend in the growth of the use of smart speakers. And this is something we've talked about on this show before. The Lloyd's data indicates a growth in the number of people using smart speakers like Alexa, Siri, or Google Assistant, increasing from 39% in 2020 to 44% in 2021. Now, the
Wow.
Ofcom report found that 20% of people in their sample used smart speakers to go online. So again, I think it's, a report that has more balance maybe in the Ofcom one, just bearing in mind that the groups that we're saying will have contributed to the report. So the Ofcom report is 20% of people who use smart speakers to go online. They say this is not an insignificant figure. Smart speakers are increasingly used to help connect and support people with reduced dexterity and mobility to support independent living. And the steady incline in the use of smart speakers presents new opportunities to rethink how we define the essential digital skills that people need to use these devices, thinking beyond tablets and laptops. So I'm really pleased to see SCVO talking about that, because I think it is something that we will see more and more of. And we will want guests on the show who can talk about that a bit more, as Ben Haddock did from Sandwell Fab Labs a couple of months ago.
And that's really, it's the other useful thing there is just to have the figures from those two reports side by side, to just have a look at them. So that's a very useful article for anyone interested in which way the wind's blowing.
Definitely. And I think we've come to the end of the show again. So
I think we have
great
already.
to talking to you about the all the different things that we've picked up along the way. And we hope our readers find this, and listeners find this useful. We do know that some of you have been able to put into practice some of the some of the information from the stories that we've been quoting from over the last year or more. So we're grateful to you for that, and please do keep in touch with us and let us know what you're thinking and doing. And in the meantime, have a great week.